All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this amazing session. I'm joined by some amazing speakers today, and we're basically exploring the crossover and channels between NFT artists and their fans. So I'd love to take an opportunity to thank CryptoArt Week Asia for having us, and I'd also like our amazing speakers to start by introducing themselves.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Yacine. I'm the co-founder of the platform Minty.Art. We are a platform recoining patronage. It's an NFT platform where basically collector can become patrons and sponsor creators and enable a new type of relationship between collector and creator. And we just launched a week ago, so a pretty stressful week, but yeah, happy to be here.
Right, hi. So I'm Xaix. So I'm a member of NFXT. So NFXT is a collective effort in Malaysia. So we help artists and collectors learn about NFTs, and I'm a collector myself. I started like 3 months ago. So once I knew about NFT and studied it, and I went down this rabbit hole that I never got out till today. So yeah, so we educate like a lot of people on how to like start using NFT, make them understand what it is and things, and you know, that's what we do as a collective effort. That's about it. Yeah.
Amazing. And my name's Kyle. I'm the co-founder of DoinGud. We're an NFT ecosystem empowering meaningful creation. We'll be built on Polygon, and we're actually lowering the barrier of entry so anyone without crypto experience can actually participate on our ecosystem. And we are super, super into social impact. We're partnered with over 200 plus social causes that are verified by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about today is what is the connection that we're starting to see like kind of blossom between artists, NFT creators, and their newfound patrons and fans in the NFT space, these collectors. I think it's super interesting because beforehand it was a little convoluted, the relationship between a collector and an artist. You had to have a curator, a gallery, etc. Oftentimes there's this barrier between that communication. And I think what's beautiful about this space is the ability to blur those lines and actually open a dialogue to the people supporting you. So I'm curious what you guys think about this, where you see this headed, and you know, from your observations, is this something that is progressing and a good thing for the ecosystem, or do we maybe need those frictions, that sort of friction in place to protect artists in certain respects and their creative integrity?
You want to go ahead first, Yacine?
Okay, I'll go ahead. So yeah, it's a very interesting question because it's basically a question so like there are multiple questions in your question, but if we start by talking about this intermediation that was removed or that is removed by the technology, it's the idea is beautiful, like to say, okay, artists are surrounded by intermediaries. They cannot even be in contact with their collectors, let's remove this friction and enable them to get a better portion of the value they create and enable like maybe like a fair transaction. But the reality is much different. We are seeing, first of all, when we designed our platform, initially we wanted to enable the community to curate itself. You know, we were trying to bring the whole ethos of crypto towards the world of art and leveraging all those beautiful tools that the technology enables, you know, the concept of DAO, the concept of decentralization and empowering the community. but it's a mess, really. Like it's complicated. It's initially, I think there is a big part of centralization before reaching a point where you can have a healthy decentralized space, because there are, you know, so many ways to like affect the model, like to temper this design. And per default, people are mean, or like, you know, they don't think about the community. There's like always like something that was coming and like breaking this design. So we like for example, like I can't myself. It's very difficult for me to assess who is an artist right now. I can't even define, because anybody that has that know how to use Photoshop becomes an artist now, or not even Photoshop, just like a camera. So there's a lot of noise, and that's that. But that's obviously the normal way for an adoption. Like really, like the first one to adopt a breakthrough technology are usually, you know, those super savvy people and the scammers and like all the noise that comes with it. I'm not saying the community is bad right now. I'm just saying, like, you know, like the headlines, what we've been able to see and how we had to adopt our model and take back control. Although the vision initially was that let's give it back to the community. Let's enable them to create this healthy relationship, and like we had to put in place a curation process first of all, and like really review everybody. Also, we have some aspects that are really challenging, like the fact that people can be anonymous, right? This is definitely a plus, but also how do we you know, connect who is really legitimate, who is really the artist? Like, is it like you can come with an avatar and you know, Instagram profile and pretend this is you, whereas like you took the artwork from someone else. It's so complicated to screen, curate, and really to find like legitimate people on the, especially, I mean, on the artist side, because the artist side is definitely super liquid. There are so many artists. We opened the application form, and within a week we had 1,500 artists that applied. So we were super excited until we started like to review each profile. So on that side, we like it's not that, you know, beautiful. And even if the ideology behind it is you know, has like profound and sincere approach, like when you put things in place, it becomes very, very hard. And then we see also that artists, even if they want to be removed from this friction, from these intermediaries, they still need them. Some artists, you know, especially we talk about an advanced technology, can't even mint a token. They can't like download a MetaMask wallet. They don't know where to start, and they don't want to actually. And we might not want them to do that. We want them to focus on the creativity, focus on your art, and let's, you know, maybe introduce someone else that can help you and assist you in creating your profile and help you to market yourself. I have an artist in France that is an extraordinary artist. I mean, I really love what he does, but he's incapable of just like opening his email. He doesn't know his email address. So you see, like, how can I tell him, like, okay, here's the tool, you can now mint your token. It's like, this is, you know, what we want and what really the market is capable of. There's a big gap. So I mean, I could tell you a long story about all the friction and what is really going on, and but I would like to emphasize also the relationship between artists and collectors. But maybe I'll pass it over and continue it later on the second part of the question to Xaix. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name.
No worries. Yeah, for me, it's like, you know, a friend of mine kind of like asked me last time, like, hey, when are you going to get into art, right? You probably, you're now into watches, you're into cars, and soon you're going to get into art, right? So I told my friend, like, I don't think I'll ever get into art, right? Like, never in my life I would know how to appreciate art, right? But until NFT started, right, I find myself like getting to know the artists, communicating with the artists, everything. It seems like a really nice thing to do, and I start to know like what art is all about, right? How the journey started for me is when I first wanted to understand NFTs. I bought my first NFTs on Foundation, and the moment after I purchased that NFT, because I was like bidding with someone else, and I had like regrets, and I feel regrets. I feel happy at the same time, and I don't know what I was feeling, right? So I started to use that NFTs on my wallpaper, kind of justify myself how much I've paid for this art and things like that, in order to understand like what am I doing with this NFT? Is it something meaningful? I couldn't even put it in my wall, but I could put it on my wallpaper. And then until the artist start to like message me on Twitter, and he starts to say that, hey, you know what? Your purchase of my art has totally changed my life. Like, I could now pay my debt for my family, and I could now pay myself into like a university to get into an art school. And, your purchase has totally changed my life. And at that moment, right, I realized that, wow, this NFT space has like really connect, like someone who doesn't want to know anything about art, and then suddenly you're like in communication with the artist, and you started to know about their life, and it's like, oh, which school are you going, I've been chatting with him. And this doesn't just happen once, right? The next NFT or the next 2-3 NFT that I bought, artists start to reach out to me on Twitter and saying that, oh, thank you, like this has totally like changed my life, you helped me a lot on this, and I starting to make a lot of friends around the Twitter space. But yeah, as a collector, it feels like you've been appreciated by buying something, right? So it's a different experience than if I went to a gallery and then I start to buy the art, and then I think that I wouldn't even get to know the artist, right? Because it's in the gallery, right? I wouldn't have met him or chat with him on Twitter. So it kind of like changed the entire scene of between artist and collector. And another problem that I face about communication with artists is, or communication between a collector, is that sometimes a collector doesn't have a public profile. They are anonymous. Like they don't even have a Twitter handle on their foundation account or the Rarible account. So there's no way for you to communicate, right? So that's where I had an idea that there should be a tool that allows this form of communication, right, between a collector and an artist, or collector and a collector. So that's why I created a platform called like Ethereum Chat. So it's called ETH Chat, where you can just message anyone with an Ethereum address and start like communicating with them. And I find that with this tool, I've been getting like a lot more like artists and collectors started to like messaging me, and we start to talk, and then we get together as an artist and an IT guy like myself, and then we can like start collaborating and do different kind of projects together. So that's really like I feel like this is it brings people together, this NFT scene.
You bring up a lot of really good points, particularly the connection that you talk about, connecting people to one another, forming relationships. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people miss out on when they first get into the space. So before working on the platform, I was actually an NFT artist and did pretty well in the space. And one of the first hurdles I had was understanding that this space is totally different, that you need to create relationships, you need to create connections with people. and people are willing and eager to help people who they feel this bond with. And so as these gatekeepers, so to speak now, of these platforms, how do we facilitate these connections? Is that via chat in the way you're doing it? Is it lowering the barrier of entry so that, you know, Web 2.0 audiences can jump into this space and support the creators that they've been supporting for so long? I think there's a lot of room for connecting further with audiences, especially when you start thinking of NFTs as experiences or keys that unlock utility. And I think we're just starting to see the surface of this with Discord groups where NFTs kind of act to unlock secret chat rooms with creators. I think this will constantly be pushed, and probably more so by the content creators from like the Instagram and TikTok worlds. So I'm curious to see how that unfolds as things kind of go forward. And I'm also curious to see how people create connections beyond just the collector and the artist, but how do we actually create connections, at least in our case, with social causes that people care about? How do we gamify change and creating impact and forming connections and community around various causes or various categories of causes? So I think, you know, to speak to like what Yacine was saying earlier about leaving it open to community curation and how that's difficult at first, I would totally agree with you, man. On the one side, as a creator, you're coming into this space and you don't like the gatekeepers. I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't like them. And now that I'm kind of on the other side of it, I understand that there's a lot more at play here than just the creators. You know, you have to build an ecosystem. For the creators to thrive, you need to have a certain caliber of quality for the collectors to come in and support the creators. It kind of creates this yin-yang situation. And so I feel like you need these gatekeepers in a lot of senses, especially what I think we'll start to see more of the next few months, and something we really want to implement with DoinGud is inviting in curators, tastemakers, and people who have this professional expertise as gatekeepers and tastemakers to have a say in this space. Because a lot of creators do want that connection, and a lot of others want someone to manage it for themselves. And that's more of a traditional art world kind of perspective. But I think what's beautiful about this space is there's no rules. You can kind of rewrite it as you go. Everyone can do something completely different and still be right. And I think that's what's exciting about this space. I would love to hear maybe a little bit more from Yacine. You know, we've talked a little bit about, you know, connection, community, forming these bonds via chat rooms and stuff. Are these things that, you know, you're thinking about with your company, or like trends that you're seeing moving forward?
Yeah, great. You know, overview of exactly like what we are trying to solve by bringing those platforms to life. We all like come up with an idea and we think, oh, okay, right now there's this new land of crypto. You have this new land that blockchain, you know, enabled, where there are so many possibilities, like it's endless, and you can test, you can try, you're probably gonna be wrong, but as you said, even if you're wrong, there's something for whom you're gonna be right. So you come up with the idea, you can really like test the market, and this is what we came through, like with the idea of Minty. To just give a bit of background, a year and a half ago, I was working on a different project. I started to create as a you know, a crypto enthusiast. You know, entering in crypto makes you a little bit like entering into like a kind of a religion, right? Like you feel that you have something that is so powerful here, that can empower individuals, create different relationships, new relationships that are amazing, that you want to share this with everybody, and you want like really, you believe it's good and you want to share it with people, and you enter into this like mindset of a religious person. Although like I try, you know, like to stop talking about this at dinner so family don't get pissed, you know, but until Bitcoin breaks 50, where everybody's like, okay, so tell me more about this Bitcoin, right? Everybody went through this. But however, so the idea was that I met this artist, and yeah, sorry, I was connecting the dots. But so before doing Minty, I was building a card to enable Bitcoin adoption. And so it was like a kind of credit card based on crypto, but it didn't work. And I wanted to implement instead in the card NFTs. And I enter into a relationship with an artist, a French artist that was painting frescoes in the street. And he basically found in crypto a way to monetize his art, because you know he was creating this beautiful art and offering it to anyone that was passing by, but like there was no way for him to collect any money. But he started to put a Bitcoin QR code, like a lot of artists started to do as well, and that was brilliant. So people were just tipping him, so that was cool. And at some point, he discovered the concept of NFTs, and he started to think about like, okay, how if I transport, because this art is, I can't like store this art. There's no way for me to remove the wall and to ship it to someone, right? So, but NFTs enable this. NFTs are this new digital canvas that where I can store my art and I can move it around, and it also transport the value, so I can receive the payments. So he was really thrilled by this idea. He's an artist and he really just educated himself, and I was really astonished. So I was discussing with him, and because I was really curious about his art, and I wanted to implement NFTs, and I was looking in my cards, and I was looking for one artist. And I thought about him. And when I was talking with him, he told me that actually he was painting a new frescoes in a gold foundry that was about to be destroyed. And he had this illumination where he wanted to paint a Michelangelo fresco. So he wanted to paint the Sistine Chapel. And he's like, okay, I'm doing it right now while I'm talking with you. And I was like, oh, wow, tell me more about it. And so he put on the camera, he started to show me that what he was painting. And I was like, okay, how could I get a piece of that? And I was just amazed by what he was doing. And, you know, I was like, so I was potentially a collector, and I was chatting with the creator that was doing a creation. And they were like, just like an explosion of ideas, and, you know, like, wow, like what's going on here? So how, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, I was trying to think about a model. And then he told me as well that he actually was able to fund this project by talking to his collectors and finding among his like super collectors some patrons. And so he like really started to, you know, like I was like, wow, like tell me even more about it. So he was telling me like, okay, I created these different tiers and basically replicated the model of Indiegogo, Kickstarter, etc., where I just said to my patrons, hey, you want to be my collectors, you want to be more than a collector, you want to become a patron. And so I would paint for you something that I have in my head, and I will give you these different tiers where wherever you feel comfortable, you want to, you know, support the project, where you fit in, you just like allocate this amount and I'll give you this like special NFT. And so you can see the fresco. It's called so the underground Sistine Chapel. So he painted 400 characters. It's really impressive. And it was all funded by his patron. And in exchange, the patron have, according to the different tiers, get different NFTs. And some had even like their face painted in the art, right? Which is exactly what was happening in the time of Renaissance, and, you know, Michelangelo, Da Vinci were all like giving this tribute to their patron by painting them in the art, or like a little sign, a little tip that will connect it to those patrons. So he basically just like gave me this idea of like, what if we bring back the concept of patron and enable creators to enter into a different relationship with collectors, whereas it would be, you know, like you can assist in the whole creation process. You can be in from the genesis, from like the ideation stage, you can be involved as a collector. And because the technology enabled this, and the payment system also with crypto enable like really to design whatever model you want. So we thought about this platform where there would be the creation process that would be like basically presented as a project, you know, really like Indiegogo, where you have like your thoughts, your idea, your sketches, whatever you share with your an MVP, you share with your future supporter, and whoever is interested in supporting it will give an allocation. And at the end of the creation, like you will get the NFT that represent whatever allocation you took, whatever tier you participate in, and would enable also a communication. And actually, we were like relying on Discord right now, but the idea of eChat is amazing because we have some situation where people don't want to reveal. We will have to chat about it after the session. But yeah, like we see that collectors want to be more than just this guy that comes and execute a transaction and just purchase the art. People want more, and the technology enables to bring more. So they can witness the creation process. There will be like an exchange going on. And this is what happened with the Sistine Chapel. P-Boy, the artist, has created a Telegram channel and put only his patron there and was like sharing every moment, you know, the good one, the bad one, the doubtful moment, you know, like where he was in like not figuring out, and people were like patrons were suggesting idea. It was really so powerful. And seeing this whole project turning into life, and from that project, it gave us inspiration to build the platform. And now we're like trying to put in place all the tools that will make the life of creators easier, and like especially like find ways to be empowered by their patrons. But as we were saying in the beginning, enabling like, you know, like this lowering the bar doesn't mean necessarily that you're gonna get the best. This like curation has to be put in place at some point, because so we wanted to create this status of patron where people feel that they are like a bit more special than just a collector, and they have skin in the game, because in our model you need to stake or to lock a token, and then you feel that, you know, you have some kind of responsibilities, you know, a liability, and you are like supporting the artist. Like you have the status of where you're supporting. You're not supporting just, you know, at the end of the struggle, because maybe the artist cannot paint because he has no money. You were talking, Xaix, about examples of like artists that you change their life by just like buying a painting, right? But some wish they could, you know, get access to internet, get a computer, and maybe like by enabling this collectors to come before the creation process, maybe, you know, it will trigger and like enable to reveal other artists that have nothing, right? Although, I mean, to enter into a connection, to pay them, they need at least like a computer or like a smartphone. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to bring these different tools to bring like a new generation of artists to life, and not necessarily focus on those that have already succeeded and, you know, that are taking all the space. So we're trying to shift, you know, the transfer of wealth and emerge new opportunities for creators.
Amazing. And I just want to touch on something and pass it off in a moment. You know, we talked a lot about protecting collectors' identities and like the well-being of the collector in this connection. And I think what some people don't realize on the flip side is, for the artist who's having their artwork purchased, in a lot of senses, they feel indebted to these collectors. And in some cases, what we're seeing a lot of recently, or at least I've been seeing a lot of recently, is collectors starting to feel like because they're patrons of this work, that they actually have a say and a voice in what artists create. Like what the theme of the artwork is, what they're creating, how they're creating it. You have a lot of collectors who are so fixed and focused on the scarce one of one, like, oh, you can't release any editioned work because it devalues my investment in you. And I think that's super interesting because we're starting to see other platforms pop up that don't actually attach value to scarce editions. And artists are still doing quite well. And maybe that boils down to the relationship an artist has with their artwork and whether they want to be someone in the hands of few or in the hands of many. I think there's many ways for creators to play. But how are we as gatekeepers acting as middlemen in a sense, or trying to educate audiences to prevent this sort of invasion of creativity on one side, and then the invasion of, you know, kind of leaving collectors out to dry by all of a sudden flooding and devaluing those who invested in you early?
Well, I guess it has to be like your relationship with the artist, right? If you have a good relationship with the artist after you bought your first art and he kind of like thank you for it and things goes well between you two, I guess the artist, if he wants to mint another similar kind of art for the next edition that is quite similar to the one he bought, then he could. But, you know, artists would feel, you know, a little slight of guilt if, you know, he released a similar kind of art and it devalues the collector's art. So what I like about this is that it doesn't put the power back in the middleman that's between the collectors and the artists. It's still up to the artist's decision, right? So I have experienced a scenario where the artist mint a 10 edition of his collection and someone just bought 10, right? And the rest of the guys couldn't even get one. So yeah, it became an issue there because all the other fans were like, hey, you know what? You shouldn't like buy 10, you know, like you have to consider like other people who wants to buy this edition, right? And then the guy who bought 10 is like just holding it for like weeks and didn't want to give it back to the other people or trade with another NFT that's in the collection, right? So the artist now has the power to mint another 10, right? Because this guy is being an ass to the public, right? So that's what I like about it, right? It still puts the power back to the artist. And you know, if you have to like form a good relationship with your artist so that, you know, he won't do those kind of things to you and you won't do those kind of things to him. So I guess you have to pick that balance, right, between like, you know, what kind of art you're gonna release. So the artist needs to like really carefully like plan out like what kind of art he wants to release and how many editions for his art and things like that. And I guess artists know that if you mint on one platform, you shouldn't be minting on another platform, right? Or another blockchain, right? I mean, it's just like common sense that artists shouldn't do that. It's a no in the NFT space. But yeah, this kind of things I think is very interesting, you know, the dynamics where it changed and it puts back the power to the artists themselves. Whereas before NFT, artists are like, you know, I have no say, you know, sometimes you need sponsorship from you know, a gallery or something, and then you have to like abide by their rules, things like that, where now it shifts back the power back to the artists. It's just like how you know, Bitcoin shifts back power of money to us, right? We no longer have to rely on banks and, you know, anyone to keep our money. So yeah, it's very, very nice to see that this has turned into like this kind of dynamics where we can see a power shift in the NFT space.
Yeah, and I want to touch on one of the things you just said, because we just had this issue arise this last week. What happens if someone wants to buy all 10 of a limited edition?
Yeah.
What if it's a bot? What sort of relationship and friction does that create between collectors and the creators? Does it annoy people? Do they look to the platform? Do they look to the artist? And it's really interesting because I think in this space, it's still always going to be partially the Wild West, where there's a lot of room for experimentation. And ultimately, at least the approach that we want to take with DoinGud is, how do we give complete control to the creators, but do so in a way that's mutually beneficial to everyone? And it might be a little bit of a learning experience. Some creators might go in and mint stuff with royalties that are 100%, or maybe 100% of the proceeds go to a social cause. That obviously might affect the collector in a negative way, or maybe that's something that they purchase without the incentive of flipping it or the speculation of doing anything beyond that first transaction. So I think there's less isn't necessarily more. I think less can be great, more can be interesting. And so giving people the most opportunities and the most options, if creators want to put limits on the purchasing of their works, they should be able to do that. If galleries want to have a percentage of an artist's work for promoting them and doing the heavy lifting, we believe that that's something they should get, but not before they can negotiate and submit a proposal to the artist for verification. So I know you probably had something to say, Yacine.
Yeah, I actually wanted to combine to bring some thoughts here, because indeed, this idea of I can mint anything I want and as many as I want, I think it's it could be beneficial, but it also could be a threat for the value, for the art that is created. And I would suggest another solution, actually. But before that, so what the first thing is that the art has to be, in order to be appreciated, has to be scarce. This is one part of the fundamentals. If there were 1,000 Mona Lisa, I don't think Mona Lisa would have this whole traction and this whole powerful art wouldn't exist. It's so what the thing is that it has to be non-fungible, right? If I mint many non-fungible, then it becomes fungible. So we need to preserve these things. The technology now enables to really smoothly create anything and associate value to it, but it's not because it's creating the printing machine. Then we just can print, and this is we can see it in a financial system how problematic it is, because okay, I have a strong dollar, but if I create too many strong dollars, at some point they become weak dollars, right? If you inject trillions of trillions, at some point it's worthless, right? Because it's there are principles that have to be associated to an asset in order for the asset to maintain its value. And scarcity is one of them, or at least a fixed number. If tomorrow we say, okay, but there are not enough Bitcoins, so let's just create more Bitcoin, then you lose the value, right? So we need to know what exactly we're aiming for from the beginning. Otherwise, if you change the rules, if you mint 10 additional pieces of art, you're first of all, that guy, okay, he had the possibility to take 10, and it was a risk. Maybe it wouldn't go the way it went, right? Maybe he bought 10 pieces, and then nobody wants of this art, and then yeah, he lost the money, but it's bad, and that's free market. So instead of creating 10 more, the technology has such power that it can turn any asset that is illiquid into a liquid asset. So there is this new way of, like fractionalizing assets. So instead of creating multiples, bring increase the audience by fractionalizing the existing one and give a piece to anyone that wants. That's how you maintain the value, but just like increase the audience. Otherwise, I think you're like it's doing wrong. Like you're breaking the rules, right? Like by creating more. So we need to maintain this. But like it's true that now it's so easy to mint additional and like think, okay, I'm gonna get a new customer or like a new collector. But down the line, you're shooting a bullet to your foot. Like you need to preserve the value and find other ways to increase the amount of collectors, or like how you can spread this value. So the power of crypto is really, I think, the killer app that was brought to us by blockchain technologies is really to turn any asset in that is the majority of assets are illiquid, right? Like right now, like after art, the next step I think will be like securities, it will be real estate. These assets will turn into liquid assets, and so increase the amount of people that will be able to access to it. And this is how you trickle the value to different communities. And that in my opinion, this is the right way. Otherwise, we're just like creating another, like turning non-fungible into fungible. That's my take.
Have you heard of a saying that, only 1% of NFTs is gonna make you money, and that means 99% of the NFT you buy is just for your collection, right? Don't expect to resell it at a higher price.
Absolutely. And actually, like fractionalizing enables you to not resell it, right? Like if I have an expensive Picasso, but I can't, my only way to maybe like get to get any kind of like cash flow out of it is to sell it. Then I want to keep the art, but I want to make a bit of money out of it. If like the value that it's concentrated in this piece is so big, if my Picasso is worth 100 million, maybe I can fractionalize and like give away 10 million worth of it. And some people would be happy to get just the exposure to the value appreciation. They don't care. And they can even print at home a fake one and say, okay, look, I have a piece of that one.
Yeah.
And so to me, that this is where I think we should go. Because the technology enabled that. You can have a fraction. I mean, it's already possible, like, right? Like those assets are usually held by a special purpose vehicle, and people own, like a share of that vehicle. But like now with crypto, you can do it almost by yourself. Not necessarily here. I'm trying to maintain the aspect that collectors want to enjoy their art. They're collecting art. They don't want to necessarily make a flip and 10x. But maybe there's a way to do both.
So if you fractionalize a Mona Lisa painting, right? So the eye probably has more value than the mouth, right? Where it is on the art.
Yeah. I mean, but that depends on how big the market, how big is the addressable market, how many collectors want of it? Because this is very interesting. The painting of P-Boy, that was the first one that he decided to tokenize. Basically, he took this massive, like a picture, wide angle picture, and turned the picture into 100 NFTs. And you could buy pieces of it. Okay. In the beginning, it was like less than like 0.1 ETH, even for the eye, or like whatever character that are in the middle. So it was not really valuable. But then he's, he became more and more famous, and now dark little pixel on the corner is like worth 5 ETH. so you know, like I was in the beginning, I was like, oh man, they took like the main parts, like the central parts, and it's worthless. But actually, some other people were smart to buy those little corners, dark, you know, and yeah, now like they're worth much more money. So you don't know, you know, it's yeah. At some point, you know, everybody want a piece of it. They don't care which piece. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff you guys are bringing about great points. There's obviously a lot of potential, a lot of things that this space can do, and a lot of value from scarcity and all the things that we're building and exploring. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today, but thank you all for so much for your contributions, chatting. It was really great to talk to you and hear your insights. They're super valuable. Thank you for CryptoArt Week Asia for having us. And if anyone would like to continue the conversation, I'm sure you can all find us on Twitter, and we're happy to engage and talk with you about whatever you need. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.